that last bit. Love that last bit. Here we go. We are back in the recording studio in Brighton, and for the first time this series, the sun is shining. It is a beautiful day here in Sussex, and we are welcoming into the studio Sam Rogers of Visa UK. Sam, welcome to the Foyne Jones Show. Welcome to Brighton. You travelled down yesterday evening, mate.
Yeah, came down last night. I was in Chelsea yesterday, so came down last night, and beautiful day today.
I mean, this is a guy that knows his postcode. So you live in Shakespeare's Manor. You live in Stratford upon Avon. I do like that Shakespeare and Hathaway series, by the way. Which is set around there.
It's filmed.
I find it a very easy watch. It's completely right. It's complete fiction, but it's an easy watch and I can zone out. But beautiful part of the world. I used to spend a lot of time there in my salaried days working as a juice and sales director with their head office in Binley. We had a lot of meetings in Stratford, and we often, Sam, and you may have seen us over the years, which is not a good thing, but it's often a stop-off on the way to like a Birmingham away game or a Villa away game. Yeah. You get a lot of away fans kind of stop there before the final leg into the second city. But we've got lots to talk about today. Producer Charlie is with us, and amazingly, Charlie, we're at episode 17. Episode 17, and we're going to be talking about getting back to business, and I think that's got a really good flavour for what you're doing with your company, because you're back in the UK, and I'm going to nick this little lyric from Take That. You're back for good this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely back for good. There's no question around it. We pulled out of the UK a couple of years ago now, and for all intents and purposes, it wasn't really the right decision. And I think the great thing about the company is that they've identified that and said, no, there's a whole market there. It was perhaps just the strategy wasn't right for what we were wanting to do. But they then turn around and say, right, okay, if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. Let's invest in the right areas. Let's invest heavily. Let's make sure that we're now a legal entity in the UK, so Visa UK rather than Europe, and all the things that come with it. And then the big thing is obviously Wigmore Street showroom, which is anybody that knows the location, 27 Wigmore Street, between Boltop and Boffey is quite sizable.
Showrooms to the stars.
It sure is, yeah.
It's a street to the stars. It's in my hometown. It's in the centre of London, but it's where the magic happens. You know, it's one of those key locations. But if your journeys took you to the design centre in Chelsea Harbour, you know, you've been very close to my part of the world, Fulham. So we've got you down in Sussex by the sea. So let's just start the show. I'm Charlie, give me a tick. I'm sticking to the script. Look, I'm doing the let's get to know the guest rather than talking about my football team. So let's get to know you, Sam. So you're not from the UK originally. We're going to get to know you, but before we do, we're going to do a little wave to the family. We're going to say hello. Who are we saying hello to today?
My beautiful wife, Hayley.
Hayley, how you doing?
My little fur babies, Pogo and Major, as well. And we don't have children, so hi, Mum. Hi, Mum.
Is she Rogers, Mum?
She's Rogers, yeah.
Hello, Mrs. Rogers. And, you know, I recruit listeners from any generation. I recruit animals. I recruit anyone, because I think the Foyne Jones Show makes it a better world for every single listener we have. But the story for you, we were just talking before we off air, really, and, you know, we were talking about sport. And when people learn, and might have picked it from your accent, like I did in our first conversation, but if you can see from the accent, you're another guest, but you're from New Zealand originally, where we had Nathan, who spent some time living there from Virtual Worlds. But from your accents, when people look at New Zealand, they think of culture, they think of sport, they think of a healthy lifestyle. You are a sportsman. You told me you're a flanker, or an open side flanker on the rugby pitch, and an all rounder on the cricket pitch, Sam. So welcome to the show. We're going to talk about sport and your love of sport, but tell us a little bit about your story. How did you arrive in the current role?
In the current role, it was a good few years to get to this point, that's for sure. My career prior to coming to the UK was a bit all over the place. It was a bit sporadic. I worked for now a competitor, but I worked for Miele in New Zealand towards the end there. Wanted some change and wanted to get away from New Zealand at the time, for the right reasons, to kind of progress forward in my life and career. So I came to the UK with Miele, which was a great opportunity for me at the time. Had a good number of years with them and developed my career from an account manager through to running the projects division. And then it got to a point where I said, right, I need to do something different. I need change internally. It got to a stage where I was always a big believer. When I very first started at me that I remember meeting people who had been there 25, 30 years. And as I was shaking their hand, I was just going, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be here in 25 years because what's the point? What am I learning?
It's amazing, though, when you get to that point. And I had a conversation this morning with someone we're working with, and they've made a decision that, you know, and a lot of this, we learnt this in lockdown, that if something doesn't feel right and it's perhaps affecting your mental health, or it's your work-life balance is corrupted, or you're just not getting out of bed up for it, you make a decision, and they've made this decision. And I was going back through my career, and I think it was the eureka moment for me was the launch of Foyne Jones, and it was realising that for that very first time, I didn't want my governor's job. All through my career till then, I always wanted that next step up, and it was like, don't know if I'm going to enjoy that. And sometimes, if you're big enough to recognise it and make a change, you should. And I'm going to ask you, have you seen the benefit from making that change?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no two ways about it. I mean, I joined, Alif Mila joined Fisher & Paykel, which is a brand, even though I'm no longer with them, it's still very close to my heart being a Kiwi. You want to see Fisher & Paykel doing well as a New Zealand brand, and have very fond memories of working with them and against them for a number of years in the New Zealand market as well. So joined them and working with David and the team there, which was fantastic. And David's a great character in the industry as well. I told you
my story about David and I at the KBB show. It was two strange middle-aged men hugging on the zebra crossing in the Birmingham in the NEC Arena car park. Yeah. I mean, what that looked to the outside world, I don't know, but that's an individual who stood up and made a difference during the pandemic. Yeah. And I'd imagine a great guy to work for at the time, because it comes through. They're close to your heart. You've got an affection with them from your time in New Zealand, and you're speaking fondly of them, and that's how it should be, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I always have the view of, we're not mortal enemies. Yeah, we're competitors, and if you go from one company to another and within the same industry, if they've looked after you, if they've paid you, you haven't had issues working for them from HR or whatever it might be, then why shouldn't you have fond memories and still speak of them quite highly? There was a pound of flesh that you gave, but in return you got something for that. And unless it was a complete disaster zone, you should always be respectful of that. So two brands who are strong in the UK and obviously in New Zealand as well, respectively. I'll always speak very highly of them, and the individuals I worked with there who helped me in my career and supported me. And it got to a point where COVID came along, changed everything for pretty much the majority of the world, and it was no different where we were, and it got to a point for myself where I was going, okay, look, you need to start having conversations about what you want to do next, and by sheer coincidence, just had a conversation with David Knight, who's our MD for Visug in the UK, and he was a sales director for me at Mila. Okay. So for a number of years, I'd worked together with him, and he said, well, look, if you're interested, there's an opportunity within Visug, and these are our plans. This is what we're looking to do, and it was talking a lot around the brand coming back, how the long-term plan and what that looks like, implementing ourselves in the UK market again, Wigmore Street showroom, etc., etc. And it just looked at it on paper and went, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer in terms of what the brand's doing, the new products that they're bringing to the market, all these great things that they were doing. It was an opportunity you couldn't really walk away from. So it was very bittersweet, because you, in one hand, going, this is Fisher & Paykel's a great brand. It's a New Zealand brand. There's natural loyalty there. I grew up with the products. My grandparents had the products, for years. But it was too good an opportunity to turn down with what the plans are and what they're wanting to do. And
So you've made that decision. It's an opportunity. It's a life-changing moment, and I talk about this all the time. We now, in the work we do with our recruitment, recruitment gets bad press. It gets, you are this, you are that. We don't care. We're this, and actually, if you find a recruitment partner or a recruiter that actually does it the right way, they can help you achieve something life-changing if you're in a job-seeking situation, and if you're actually, looking to attract good people and people that perhaps are not aware of your brand or wouldn't, for example, not every business is going to be lucky as Ben Francis in Gymshark where they're opening around the corner for you. We're recruiting. Okay, he's going to have more than an orderly queue of people wanting to be in that showroom. Other businesses, other brands, they need to kind of showcase themselves to stand out and be attractive. Good recruitment partners can help you do that because they're experts, they're specialists. you've done something life changing. You've moved into your role at Visa. So let's explore what it is you do, And I love asking people this. What do you do? Like, what do you do every day? Talk us through a working day, working week, like your role and the pressures and the opportunities you're involved in.
Yeah, it's ever changing at the moment as we're continuing to grow. So it's changing in a very positive way, but no one day is the same. My day can range from simply processing orders and getting down and dirty, rolling your sleeves up, and doing work I've probably never really had to do before. Through to financial reporting, all the way through to customer engagement, working with customers, queries, new inquiries, all these things that come through. And then it's the physical, getting out in the field, seeing people. You're not going to sell much sitting behind your desk at home. So now we're back out again. You want to be out there seeing people,
really
shaking
hands.
hands.
Out again, isn't it?
I couldn't stand it. I hated it. I hated being at home. I love being at home. I'm quite a homebody in general as an individual.
Your family are watching this, just to remind you. Hello.
Yeah, my wife's quite happy to see me out the door in the morning.
Mrs. Jones, she's exactly the same. Do you know? Yeah, and that's probably why during lockdown 1, 2, and 3, I was the lonely business owner taking his dog on the walk to the office. To sit in there on my own. So I get it, mate. And I'm actually less distracted in a work environment on my own safely than I am at home. I'm not the best home office worker. That's one of my weaknesses.
We're very fortunate with the house we have, etc. So we share an office, which is great, and we've got plenty of room in there. But it's the little things where my wife will be on a conference call or in a meeting or something like that, and my phone rings. So I've got a meeting on Teams or something. So you have to uproot your laptop and everything and go in the other room. But that's about as bad as it gets, really. So yeah, the role is a fantastic role with a great company, to be fair to them, with phenomenal product to go with it. So it is varied, but that's because, as I was saying to you earlier, we're a small big business. We're a small business in the UK, but
that's another one. Like we get so many guests, and they give me different things that I take out. But like a small big business, that to me immediately makes sense.
Yeah.
And you've got to understand the way markets work to get that, because you've got big company support, but you can still move quick and react like small companies can, and that's really powerful as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, and the benefit we have is Switzerland, obviously where our HQ is, and Zug. They're extremely supportive of everything we're doing in the UK. So, one, it gives you absolute confidence in what you're doing, first and foremost, and where you want to do something that's maybe a little bit out of the box or a bit different to what your competitors are doing to get an edge. You know full well you've got the backing. They're quite happy for you to go and make it relevant for market, rather than taking a blueprint saying, well, this worked in Germany, make it work in the UK. They're very much going, do what's working for you guys. Just make it work. That's essentially what we want you to do. So to have that support and backing from a head office is phenomenal. And you can't really ask for much more than that. And then you've got the backing and support from a mentorship perspective, where you could pick the phone up to some quite senior people in the business if you ever wanted to or needed to, all the way through to that nuts and bolts financial backing, paying for certain things, supporting with Wigmore Street, getting it off the ground, setting up our warehousing in Northampton, our training room in Northampton, getting the right people into the team, etc. So we've got. So it sounds like you're
following my past. The head office of my first employer, Travis Perkins, was Northampton, and the company I worked for before I set Foyne Jones up was Saint-Gobain and Jewson. So those postcodes are I know the geography, and then you're jumping down into my part of the world, Wigmore Street. I guess just getting that open, because you were talking about this during lockdowns 1, 2, and 3, and so you must have gone through some huge emotional challenges just in your role during that period.
Yeah, huge. I think the biggest one is huge passion, and then complete flip side of the coin is huge frustration, because what you've got to offer. What you've got to offer is a fantastic product. What we're bringing to the market and how we're doing it is different to what other brands are doing, and all these things, but you can't physically get out and talk to people about it. You can't physically show product to people because you don't have displays, whatever it might be. We didn't have the showroom. So there's so many factors that were ups and downs that go with it, which is hard. That makes it really, really hard. It affects your mental health. All these other factors come into it. So you have to constantly try and keep yourself motivated. So, okay, if I've got this great product but I can't actually showcase it to people, what can I do? How can I network with these people and work with them to try and push the brand?
Let's just pick up on the VZUG UK brand offer. And I want you to do something that you probably don't have to do a lot in your day job, because I'd imagine most people are aware of you in your conversations you're having. So let's just imagine someone's been parachuted in from a place where they've not been aware of design trends and fashion and appliances and everything. So how would you bring to life the brand, what you do, the products? Just take some time to tell people what the brand's all about. Bring the products and the brand to life for us.
Yeah, the brand, first and foremost, is very much a Swiss brand, very much at its core. Obviously, our head office is there. That's our heritage. We've been in existence since 1913, so well over 100 years now of operation. The great thing about the brand is being Swiss is I always say to people is we get the best of both worlds. So we have the Germanic side of Switzerland where it's very process driven, do it this way and you get X result. And then we have the passion and flair and design and everything that comes to the Italian side. And you combine the two and you get something quite powerful and quite impressive in terms of what you can offer to people. So we get the best of both worlds from that place, first and foremost. But then when we're talking to people, it's very much about Swiss precision. We all know Swiss watches. Everybody knows that. And that's something that we align with in terms of the credibility piece of a Swiss-made product. And that's where our product comes from. So we have a couple of factories in Switzerland, and one in Zug and another in Arborn, with a third opening shortly. So we try and retain as much of that Swissness as we possibly can. But then we go into kind of peel back the layers a little bit further in terms of design, how the product is designed. And we have an amazing design team headed up by a guy called Martin von Frieden. And he designed our new range, which is Excellence line. And there's little detail that is separating us from our competition in terms of our mirror finish. Nobody has a mirror finish on their product. 3 colour options in that range. Through to the control panel. Now, the control panel is the same all the way through the range. Now, whether you buy our entry-level product, our V2000, it's not exactly a bargain basement oven, but if you look at our entry-level oven, all the way through to our top-end V6000, every bell and whistle you could throw into an oven or steam oven, the physical look is exactly the same all the way through. And the point behind that was we don't want to be a brand that's dictating to people, well, if you want this, you then have to pay more because it's going to have this look to it. And you want everything to look the same. You don't want it to look beautiful. Our design team very much said, well, we don't want to do that. It's up to the consumer what they actually want and what they're actually using it for. So if somebody is only going to do a pizza at 180 degrees on fan, then they don't need every bell and whistle, but they want that look and feel that they're getting with the appliances. So design's a big part.
I genuinely think, if you look at the way the consumer purchases now, and I look at and I talk to so many KBB business owners and retailers, your customers, I talk to them, and they're it is a lifestyle purchase, it's a fashion purchase, it's a convenience purchase. So if you're looking at, and we'll go through some of your other products, but you go through those ranges, if they all look best in class or they've all got something that fits, you're covering different angles, aren't you? But the look it's everything now, isn't it? Because you want things to, and that came through, and we will come on to the KBB show. So it was only a week or so ago. But if we come into kind of what you offer, that's something you're proud of, I guess. But what else would we see if we walked around your new showroom in Wigmore Street?
Yeah, you'd see
when Charlie and I walk around the new showroom.
Yeah, welcome anytime, absolutely anytime. We, you'd see our breadth of range that we have, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I didn't appreciate, certainly when I joined the business, is people only really knew us for our ovens and steamers, and that was about it, maybe some warming drawers. But we cover all bases of that kitchen appliance range, dishwashers, hobs, refrigeration, mix and size in terms of what we offer, wine. It's covering all bases in terms of what you need in your kitchen. So there's nothing that we're really missing from that. And I think that's the big thing, is that when they walk into the showroom, first and foremost, it's not an appliance showroom. Gabrielle, who is the guy who designed the showroom, very much didn't want that look. He wanted it to be more of a lifestyle feel to it. So when you walk in, you have a very design-focused showroom, but you can visualize. Okay, yeah, I could see that in my home. I could see that in my kitchen. So you don't have banks of appliances, walls where it's just let's start at our entry level and go through. It's completely different.
I'm bored by being that type of environment.
Who cares? Great. The consumer doesn't buy that way. They buy on how it looks and how it feels. It's not necessarily about, okay, in this oven you're getting X, Y, and Z, and you come up here and so on and so forth. You've got to inspire customers, especially at our end of the market. It's, okay, we have very, very strong competition, so what sets us apart? And that's one of the big things, is that when they walk into that showroom, it's not an appliance showroom. It has a much more, as I say, a lifestyle feel to it. So they can see, they can visualize what they're going to have at home, but see the variety of products that we have on offer, whether that be a general consumer all the way through to property developers that we're working with as well, that they can cover all bases with our brand, but have a variety that sits within that, not just one dishwasher and one oven, but you've got options there. If you want something that's a little bit higher spec, you've got that. Whatever products you want to go for. So the vast range that we have available is certainly, I think, one of the biggest highlights. But as I say, just the look and feel, that it gives, the benefit for us is it gives across that luxury feel of what the brand is, but in a very approachable way. So the door is open, it's not locked. First and foremost, it was when we first opened, but we've got that fixed now, and that's very much because we want people to come in.
But do you know what, that I think is a really valid point, because if you look at some of the desirable department stores, you can sometimes feel intimidated about walking into a Harrods, a Selfridges, a Harvey Nichols, and then if you certainly do the Sloane Street and you do there, and you might want a window shop for a new handbag or a pair of shoes. They're all there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get eyed up before you even walk in, and you're thinking there is for a lot of people, the investment they're making there is properly significant.
It's huge.
And sometimes it's
huge.
not always for the right reason. It's a purchase which means something to them. Once you're in, the experience is normally very good.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can lose it on that moment of truth as you walk through the door. So if you've got an approach in a showroom which is really lending itself to being a lifestyle led and luxury and fashion, and you've got to kind of open the doors and get people in and manage it the best way. That's got to be a challenge. But you've got a good team you put together there. You've talked ages. I mean, you're passionate about this showroom, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And the team that we've got there are second to none. They're brilliant. We're really fortunate. It took a long time to find the right individuals, but we wanted to take our time with that. We've got Alicia Hill, who is a showroom manager there. She's young.
Hello, Alicia. Hello, Alicia. Fan of the Foyne Jones show?
Yeah, of course she is.
She will be now.
Listens to everyone.
Yeah, she will be now.
So so she's doing a fantastic job in terms of setting the showroom up, putting the right procedures in place, but also the right expectations.
I mean, what praise Alicia's got there.
She's great, she's a great addition.
That's brilliant. But you need someone there. If they've got the passion and they're really up for it, that's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I always go back to when I was an account manager, walking around London, knocking on doors, trying to get into showrooms. And
happy old days.
Yeah, good old days. Yeah. But the thing is I would walk into some of these showrooms, even as a rep essentially, and would often feel not welcome. And you would have a pre-booked appointment. It's not just walking in off the street. And it always sat in the back of my head, and I always thought, imagine if you're a consumer. I'm supposed to be here.
I had an experience,
it's
weird. I can't name it because it's a very bad experience, but I had an experience with a business that we were considering working with each other, and so I'm talking to the owner. So it's owner to owner chat. This isn't a pitch. This is something. And he was like, can you hurry up because I've got things to do. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
You want to partner with me to attract you the best showroom staff in your postcode.
Yep.
Or when it commute well to your postcode. And you've made me feel horrible. Like, you've just spoken to me like I'm a piece of dirt. I'm not worthy of this conversation.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, if that's a snapshot of how you can turn, because up until that moment it was all nice and, I'm like, we don't want to play.
No.
And I pride myself in with our recruitment offer, doing the right thing. I pride myself in that. So we look for transparency, we look for a partnership, we look for creativity. If it feels bad at the start, it's gone.
Yep.
And if you are bringing your experiences, it's a great way to end the first half of the show. But if you're bringing your experiences as when you felt like that, how people made you feel, into your showroom, making anyone who walks through your doors feel better, feel inspired, feel like they want to be part of it, you're making a massive difference. Sam,
absolutely.
Brilliant first half of the podcast. It's flying by. Cool. It always does. People can't believe it. When we come back, we're going to talk cricket and rugby to find out some of your influences growing up. Awesome. We'll look back at the KBB show, some takeaways, some things and moments there. And I'm going to ask you to inspire the next generation of Sam Rogerses. Wow. All right? What can we be doing to attract more talent in the industry? Cool. We'll do that after the break.
Nice one.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, are you ready? The digital revolution is no longer a spectator sport. It's game on. The magical art of storytelling is the future. Social, content, branding, podcasts, video marketing, and virtual 360 tours. This is Jones Digital.
So, what a brilliant podcast. Sam, we're going to start the second half just by talking about your evening in Brighton, mate. I know you was hanging out in Chelsea Harbour with the trendies, all right, but you spent the night in Brighton, mate. Did you get out and about last night? It was raining quite hard, wasn't it?
It was last night.
Sahara Sam was about as well.
I read about that. I didn't quite see it, but it was great to get out. I love what a great thing with my job is I get to travel a lot.
Yeah.
And you get to go to a lot of different cities and places. So I always like to try and stay in the city itself and go for a wander in the evening or the morning or something.
Did you get out last night at all?
Yeah, managed to get out, went for a bit of a wander around. Was pretty hungry at one point. I'm trying to stay healthy, so plenty of places I walk past, plenty of craft beer places and big craft beer drinkers.
That is bright, and that is the scene. But strangely this morning, as I was running along the beach, probably 7 or 8 miles, that way towards East Sussex, you was enjoying the Brighton beach and this morning. So
beautiful.
There you go. That's a great way to wake up and bring us to the show. And I guess and you said this on the before the show, took you back to kind of growing up in the beach back in New Zealand. So just where are you from in New Zealand?
Wellington originally, so I'm very much a Wellingtonian, but grew up in Auckland. Wellingtonian, very, very proud. Yeah, very proud to be Wellington.
Yeah.
Grew up in Auckland. Unfortunately, we're called Jaffas in Auckland.
Okay.
Which I can't really say on the podcast what that means, but
we can work that out.
I think you can figure it out.
We can work that out. Yeah. So New Zealand is is somewhere I always wanted to go. There's a certain little cricket pitch which it's on the coast, and when I'm like, I just want to watch a game of cricket there. I don't even care who's playing. It just looks unbelievable. And my wife and I are talking about it. We're like, well, do we go straight? I've not been either, and we're kind of both voting for New Zealand actually.
Yeah.
But who knows? That's for the future. But growing up as a Wellingtonian, we can't not talk about cricket and rugby because they're the two sports. And I mentioned it before. The some of the best, one of the best business books I've read is about the All Blacks. Legacy. It's an amazing book, and there's so much sense come out of it. Who were your influences? Because you played both sports to a good level. To a good level. Is that fair to say? Cricket to a good level?
Cricket was okay, decent at school level. Rugby a little bit further with that, which was good. But the big thing for me was always there's two rugby players I always looked at. Jonah, number one, without question. He was my hero as a kid. Still to this day, I know he's passed away, but I've got a picture on my wall of when I met him because he was an amazing guy. And the second one was Christian Cullen. And they were both, I think the big thing with them where I try and draw a lot of inspiration from is they're obviously very, very successful in what they did. Completely at the top of their game, but extremely humble with what they're doing as well. So you can be the best in whatever it is you're doing, but you always should be extremely humble with what you do.
I met in a school playground in Fulham, Sean Fitzpatrick.
He went to my school.
Right, so
yeah,
I met
he's a
him.
nice guy.
He moved to. He lived in Fulham, right? You know, his
Yeah.
daughter. This is. I mean, he won't remember meeting me, right? But his daughter was in the same nursery class as my son, like, or year infant, whatever, reception, you know. And he was just genuinely. I just was like, wow, he's just a nice guy. And then someone said, you know who that is? I'm like, no.
Yeah,
You know, I'm
yeah.
a footballer. You know, no. You know, it's. And they explained who he was. I'm like. Wow,
Yeah.
like, you know, amazingly nice person, and again, you know, I see that he's kind of doing some work with Juicing at the moment, and you know, he's at their conference and stuff, and I don't think he remembers meeting me in the playground at Fulham,
never know.
but what I would say is that there is a humbleness about professional sports people from New Zealand, and a humbleness about the leadership that really does transcend, I think. You know, I've got no links at all to New Zealand, but if they're playing cricket, not against England, I kind of want them to win.
Yeah.
Same as they're playing rugby, not against England. Kind of want them to win, and it's just something there. Don't feel that with Australia. No disrespect to all our Australian listeners. You know, but it is that. So that was your rugby influences. What about your cricket influences?
Cricket influences. There's a good couple. When I was very, very small, I remember Ian Smith, who's now a commentator. He was a brilliant wicketkeeper, etc. Richard Hadley was certainly one. But as I kind of grew up, it became people like Danny Morrison, Chris Cairns. He was always on the scene. But there was always a guy. He was a brilliant all-rounder, which was Chris Harris. And I just remember watching him as a kid. Always I couldn't wait to see him bowl, couldn't wait to see him bat. And he was kind of he looked like the old man of the team. He looked like he was 40, but he was in his 20s. Receding hairline and everything that goes with it. But he was just a brilliant player, brilliant all-rounder, and again, extremely, extremely humble as all the guys were. But he was probably the one that I kind of always loved watching on the TV. Never got to meet him, would love to obviously meet him one day, but I've met a couple of cricketers along the way as a kid growing up, and you'd always be down on the boundary with a little piece of paper and a pen or something.
I think for
getting
me,
a signature.
if I look at, you know, both my boys play cricket to a pretty decent to kind of county level or you know, minor county level in terms of they play very well. The younger one was playing a very high standard growing up, but my eldest boy was like opening the bowling for a men's team in like Division 4 Sussex when he was like 13. You know, and it was so inclusive and so fantastic for them to experience that. But I think. I've loved the sport, not really as a player, you know, not as someone there, but as a fan. And McCullum kind of changed the whole game, didn't he?
Yeah.
He changed the whole game. And my boys talk about that. They're like, he changed everything.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to be the best fielders, the best bowlers, the most aggressive. We're going to attack.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal. And you must take a lot of pride that's came from, you know, New Zealand outwards in a way.
Yeah, massively. I mean, McCullum, as you say, he changed the game as a player, but then as a leader as well, you know, as a New Zealand captain and how the New Zealand team conduct themselves, both on the pitch and off the pitch. And as you say, you know, the ball's racing to the boundary. It's probably going to go for 4. Who cares? Chase it down to the second it goes over the boundary, whether you're near it or not. You just absolutely hound that ball down
and flick it back and let someone else.
Yeah, do whatever you need to do.
And then you see the youngsters now doing that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's and by youngsters, I don't mean youngsters on the telly. I mean the youngsters in their local clubs are bringing that into play now, aren't they? It's amazing.
And it's one of those things. I think we take huge pride, New Zealand, in terms of when we are on the world stage. If you look at cricket, rugby, whatever it might be, the Olympics, Winter Olympics, all these things, we always take huge pride because there's only I think it's 4.7 million of us, but we've won the Rugby World Cup 3 times. We drew the Cricket World Cup with England. We certainly didn't lose it.
Yeah, Ben Stokes would disagree, wouldn't he? Yeah, you know.
But and then obviously the World Test Championship last year. But we're up against
some game that one we drew.
Yeah,
that was some game you drew.
Yeah.
Do you know where I watched that? Out of all places, I watched that in an Irish bar in Barcelona.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, like, it's a completely ridiculous place to be watching a cricket final. But Harry, who Charlie knows, he works here. My eldest boy, massive cricket fan, but he was living in Barcelona. So we was out to see him, me and my wife, and she was like, "Well, you still watch it?" So like, this is unbelievable. But what a game! And I guess, you know, with world events, and we touched on the world events in Ukraine in the last podcast, and you know, we are still standing with Ukraine. It gets worse every day rather than better. We just got to hope and pray there's a solution. But something in the world of cricket which kind of, it didn't go under the radar. It came up into the radar. Was the passing of Shane Warne. You know, I spoke about this on one of my LinkedIn updates that years ago I used to spend a lot of time in Malaga and Marbella, and I was on a flight back from Malaga to Gatwick, and literally I bumped into him in the queue. Like he was queuing up on the BA flight, and we were both going into like the lounge, and I had a drink with him and chat. He signed a couple of things for my boys. We walked to the plane together, but he turned into the first class and I went the other way, and that was the end of our friendship. But he was an amazing man, and I guess someone who transcended sport for his sheer personality and a willpower, and a great loss, and only 52.
Yeah. It shocked me, completely shocked me. I remember it coming through. I was at Wigmore Street showroom when the Sky News came through. And I went home that night, and I think it was the night before. It was one of those weird things. The night before I was staying away, and I saw there was a new Amazon Prime documentary on him. And I thought, I'll watch that at some point and save it to my watch list. And then obviously the next day he passed away. It's one of those weird things that kind of happens.
It was my wife's birthday. We was up in Fulham. We was going out for lunch with her mum and her sister-in-law, and it was like we was there. So I was off work that day, and it came through on my phone. I'm like, whoa. What?
Yeah.
And I kind of was speechless. And they're going, "You all right?" I said, "Well, no." And I don't know him. But it was like you've lost someone. Then my oldest boy's texting me. Yeah. Then my brother-in-law's texting me. Then my mates are texting me. Then later that evening when he came, my youngest was texting me. And it was like, wow, it kind of just had that, not just against sport, but beyond sport. And I think that, God rest his soul and you're there. But it does show you how fragile life is. And I think if we go back to, you look at the lifestyle showroom and you look at everything we're trying to achieve and what you do, we work to live. We work to live. It shouldn't be you live to work, and I think there it is something which we all need to think about. But you still playing cricket? I'm presuming you're not playing rugby. I mean, you might prove me wrong and say you're out there at it, but
no, I'm too small and too unfit now for rugby. This is a simple answer, really.
Isn't there a room for a little scrum half in like a vets team sort of thing?
Probably. I think by the
I'm
time
not
we get
aging
to
you, by the way.
No, that's fine. I won't take it personally. By the time we get to kind of golden oldies. Or whatever it is over here, very much seniors. Then maybe I'll slip the boots back on.
I'm an official vet. One of the greatest moments, Charlie, was when I qualified to play vets football. All of a sudden, I could do people for pace. I was the fittest person on the pitch again. That was a moment rather than trying to chase around the young boy band that I couldn't get anywhere near in the sort of I mean, you wouldn't have heard of it. It was Mid Sussex Division 10. I think I was playing at the time. We didn't quite make Sky Sports, but look, let's get back onto the main topic of the podcast. And I'm not brushing away from your cricket and your rugby career, but I want to talk about your role as head of sales at VZUG and get your feedback on the first KBB show since the pandemic when we got back together again. How did you find the show and the experience in itself?
Yeah, I think first and foremost it was good to get back out again and actually go to a show and actually a trade show and see people that you probably haven't seen for a while, old colleagues and partners you work with, etc., etc. So that was great from a networking perspective. I went on the Tuesday and I felt as though the show was a little bit quieter than probably what it was.
Monday night,
yeah, there was a lot of I saw a couple of partners and bumped into them and. There was some pretty long faces that morning, that's for sure. But it was good show. I think it was good for the industry. I think one of the things I'd love to see more of is more innovation coming through from the brands. Now, I know that the last couple of years have been challenging. I'm not sitting there pointing fingers saying you haven't done much. But I just think it's one of those things. We work in a phenomenal industry that has constantly reinvented itself. And it was just one of those things where I felt as though it's great to get out, it's great to have the show, it's good to see people out supporting one another in the industry. But alongside that, it would have been great to have seen a lot more innovation come through in terms of whether that be appliances, kitchens, bathrooms, etc., across the full piece. But that's just me being honest.
But that's your personal view, and I'm going to concur with some of that. Charlie and I were hanging out, and Charlie was doing some amazing videography and music work on the Monday. So he was with cameras and kit, and I did my best to interrupt that and make it as difficult as possible for him. But I met people that I haven't had the chance to meet before. I met people I hadn't seen for a couple of years. It was really good for me and the business and the brand to get about. I thought that there was some pockets of absolute excellence
Yeah.
where, you know, they've nailed it. The products have nailed it. They're buzzing. The stands are busy. They're buzzing. You could see that. At times, as I travelled around, I was quite underwhelmed at times, and there was, you know, that's no one's fault, but some of the stands lack the engagement or they lack the passion, and, you know, I think I'm kind of my own worst enemy because I'm always looking to engage and inspire and have passionate conversations that if it isn't replicated, you kind of, well, I'm going to move on maybe. But I think for the industry, it was a huge tick because we got back together again and we saw good brands and good businesses represented. At times perhaps there was areas that could do better, but that's the same in any environment, in any arena, and you're all looking for something that's right for you. If I was asked, and I probably should be asked, and I probably need to give this feedback as a visitor, what my takeaways were, I would say I got to meet fantastic people.
Yep.
I smiled. It made me feel good. I met some new people I've not met before. How on earth would I have achieved that in one day?
Exactly.
And that's where you go, do you know what? That was special. And I also got to present the sponsor of this podcast, Marcel Creasy from MHK Holding UK. I got to present him a Fulham Football Club shirt with Johan Cruyff's number 14 on the back. He was as happy as if I'd have gave him the winning golden ticket for the lottery. So that made it worthwhile. And we will definitely go back again. And Charlie's putting some amazing stuff together for Nathan and his business as well. So we are gonna carry on now from the KBB show and talk about the industry. Yep. Very quickly, Sam, how do you see the market shaping out for the rest of this year?
There's no two ways about it. It's challenging. I think no matter what sector you sit in, whether it be straight kitchens, appliances, taps, showers, etc., there's challenges ahead in terms of, for us, first and foremost, where we sit is around supply. We've been okay. We're not too bad. I know some are suffering more than others, but we're not immune. And I think if we're feeling it, then other bigger brands that are going through it, there's no two ways about it. And I think that'll last for the rest of the year and things will come back. I think the other challenge that will come is around cost price increases that will naturally, I think, flow through. We're seeing it in every other part of our life.
Everything's going up.
Yeah, everything's going up. So there's no reason why
I tried to fill my car up today. I didn't think I was going to have enough money on my car. I'm like, please stop. But I mean, we can't. So overview, snapshot, hold your nerve, ride it out.
Yep.
There's demand there. There's need there. Build relationships, and I think from your perspective, you said something really special. Work with the right partners.
Yep.
You know, become part of become a partnership and become part of the journey.
Yep. Very much that. Work with partners. We call them partners rather than accounts, and that's specifically for the reason that it needs to be a partnership.
Brilliant.
So much more limited in terms of our distribution. But we're working with the right people and engaging with the right people, and it's very much about if they've got something they need from us, then we can throw it their way, and vice versa. And that's what will get us through this next kind of 9 months or so we've got left of the year.
What we have been through since March, 2020, we will get through. We will get through. We've done lockdown 1, 2, and 3. We've done a pandemic. We've done Brexit. We'll do what's coming next. And Sam, genuinely, I mean, you've stayed in Brighton last night, so you're fully immersed into what this studio and location's about. It's good here, isn't it?
It's great.
We kind of bring it to life, but. Love the visa story, love the cricket and the rugby, and kind of just bringing to life everything you've got going on at Wigmore Street. I don't think there's a listener listening to this who would not want to kind of experience it and pop in, and the doors are open now, aren't they? So that's exciting. What I'd like to do, and I mentioned it before the break, is we are very passionate at the Foyne Jones Recruitment Group. We're very passionate at Jones Digital. We're very passionate with our partners to inspire the next generation of professionals. We want our industry, the KBB industry, the builders merchant industry, the construction industry, to kind of stand up above the parapet and go, do you know what? We can offer you, one of the listeners here right now, an amazing career. You can go from junior level to senior level. You can do marketing, business development, leadership, showroom. There's so many pathways. If you were talking to a young Sam Rogers, who perhaps wasn't going to make it as a pro rugby player or a pro cricketer, and you're looking at the beginning of that journey, what advice would you give to your younger self and the next generation of KBB professionals looking for an opportunity at the moment? How can they stand out to you?
I think the biggest thing is own what you do and own what you do well. So what I mean by that is very much you can't be an expert at everything, but there'll be something that you're really good at, something that you can hone in on. And it's about grabbing that and actually using it to its absolute potential and squeezing everything else you can out of it. Because as you develop your career, you'll learn other things. You'll make mistakes along the way, and that's good because that's all part of learning. You have to make mistakes. But there'll be that core thing that you know you can do really well and you can really own as part of your development and your career. And whether that be design, whether that be account management, whether that be the financial side, installation is a huge, I know in previous podcasts you've spoken about that gap. So whatever it is, if you're a hands-on person, guy, girl, whatever it might be, maybe installations for you, and you can learn that trade as you go.
I've got something very big. And I've got a big. I'm not gonna. I can't. I'll be told off. But we're announcing something big to try and help address that gap. It's with what Damien and Stephen are doing, and we're bringing some of our magic into that, and that's something we're big on. So what you're saying in a way is kind of niching down, finding what you're about as a person, and focus on that, and I guess believing in yourself. That's something, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's the biggest thing, because you're always going to have people around you, above you, whatever it might be, that are going to chip away, that are going to shoot you down, that are going to tell you you've done this wrong, or you should have done it this way, or whatever it might be. Thanks for your advice, man. Great. Yeah, how's that helping me?
That's such a Kiwi, isn't it?
It's
You know what I mean? Thanks, man.
Cheers,
I'm going to do it my way. But Charlie's loving that. No, he's loving that. But you know, I say to my team, and I've said this in other episodes, I make more mistakes than all of them put together times 10 every single week, like every single day, probably. Yeah. But I got encouraged at a very young age from some very influential people in my life, in my working life, almost father figures, because I never had that. So that was kind of people that I really, like, you can say sorry, have a go, try it. You don't shoot, you don't score. If you don't put your hand up and take a penalty, you're not going to put it in there. And it was almost like, you can learn by your mistakes, you can recognise different things. I also believe, for me, that surrounding yourself with people that are more talented than you, have got different skills, like that man there, Charlie Hula, and the team I work with, makes a difference. Sounds like you've done that in your showroom, you know, and absolutely. That advice you said there, you know, it might be I tap you up to pick you up and talk to some younger people that want to come into the sector.
More than happy to.
People love to. If you are spoke at, you don't listen. But if you're involved and you're engaged and there's a conversation and people can see a real journey, you know, that's something empowering, and that's some advice we can get to the next generation. So we're coming to a close. Sam, anything you want to say to our listeners on iTunes, Spotify or YouTube? Thanks for coming on to the show. We're going to see it with Bushy, but anything you want to finish the show on from your perspective?
I think the biggest thing for us, if we go back to the brand side of things and the Visa world side of things, is we are trying to be different. We're trying to be different to our competitors and what we're bringing and how we're bringing it. So not just the appliances, but how we're actually bringing it to the market. Is we're not being dictatorial. We want to work with people. We're not going to demand X amount from them. It's very much about working with them. But if we go back to more that personal side, it's about being a person, about being humble, about talking with people and engaging and shaking hands and having a coffee and chatting about how the business is going and all these things. So it's not, we don't want just transactions. We want really strong partnerships that will help develop and build our future here in the UK.
Genuinely, Sam, thank you. That's a great ending.
No, it's great to be
here. Your approach and your way about you. I'm going back to that book, Legacy. It reminds me, you know, don't be a dick. You know,
don't be a dick.
You're as strong as your weakest member of the team. You're as, you know, that on the field, off the field, attitude to training, attitude to life, attitude to your family. That's come through, mate. You've been a brilliant guest. So thanks for being part of the show.
Thanks, man.
Before we wrap up, Charlie, I've got to say hello and thank you to our sponsor, Marcel. I know wherever he is in Europe, he's wearing his Fulham shirt. In my mind, he is anyway. All right, but they're brilliant sponsors to the show. Without MHK Holding UK, we don't have a podcast. So big shout out to them. In the episode that we are recording next week, I'm so excited. It's the Charlie Hula Show. We're getting Charlie from that side of the camera to this side of the episode. He's been talking about the Charlie Hula World Tour, the music he's been making, and the brilliant work he's been doing at Jones Digital. Can't wait to record that episode, and that's going to be coming soon. thank you so much. That brings to a close episode 17 of the Foyne Jones Show Season 5, where we've got back to business. I've got a few words to say at the end. To the people of Ukraine, we're still standing with you, and our thoughts and prayers are with you that hopefully we can bring this conflict to conclusion as soon as possible, because it's what the world wants, and hopefully, we will get some common sense. So stand with Ukraine. That's the end of the Foyne Jones Show. We will see you next episode. Thank you.